Here I am again, Captain Dak, and this is the second one, and it's recorded just after the last one, and still the 26th of March 2020. This time, I'm going to talk about my first trip to sea. Now, I spent most of my life at sea. I was 52 years altogether, either at sea or something connected with the sea, like being a harbour master. So I spent a lot of time on the water or near the water. And my first trip to sea was way back in 1965. I was 17 years old and I had just left school, and my mother and I had long talks about what I was going to do. And I ended up following in the footsteps of my grandfather, who was an old sea captain for a long, long time, the turn of the last century, and right up until he finally came back to Scotland in about 1920 after being a pilot in Penang. He was an amazing old guy, Captain William Brown. Anyway, here I am, and I will never forget the date. It was May the 5th, 1965, and I came down from Dundee and to Liverpool, and all I had was my great big, huge big black tin trunk, which is totally useless to try and carry around instead of a suitcase, but the trunk is what they said, so my mother bought me a trunk. And I got a taxi, and it was a fairly nice day in May the 5th, and I arrived completely, didn't know what to expect, and got in the docks at Bootle and got to the gangway, and with a lot of struggle, I came up the gangway and put my case down and just wondered what to do. And all of such around me were these young men with tans from the tropics. They've just come back from the tropics. And I'll never forget the smell. There was a smell of salt everywhere. And it was an old ship. And the ship was built, I think, in 1947 and called the Ben Macdouey. And it had 5 hatches. And the accommodation, the living quarters, was in the middle. And it was painted sort of a grey colour. And had a yellow funnel, or a sort of a buff colored funnel. And it was just, everything was just so strange because I didn't have any pre-sea training or anything. I didn't know what to expect. And I finally got to see the first mate, who told me gruffly where my cabin is and go and put your stuff in your cabin. And so I went and got my trunk into the little cabin. It was only a small little cabin with a small bunk. And I ended up, didn't know then, but I ended up sharing it with another guy who had a top bunk, another cadet. There was 2 cadets on that trip. I was the junior cadet and he was a senior cadet. And I was told to get into my working clothes and basically just go and see the bosun, the first mate said. And I had to go and work with the bosun, or with the other sailors. And of course, he took one look at me and sort of just about shook his head, God, what have we got here? Because I was green, I didn't know one end from the ship from another. And he put me to work with the sailors. And that was basically my first day. And it was all completely alien to me, and I just bewildered, totally bewildered. But things started to get better after that. And of course, in the days, months ahead, I did my first trip, and I sort of turned into a boy to a man. And it was quite an amazing experience, that first trip at sea. But that's all I'm going to tell you about it this time. So, okay, we'll talk to you again soon. This is Captain Dak signing out. There we go.